telling all of us here on the platform, regardless of how things have been in your life, regardless of how your day went, regardless of the many things when you count them down that have been going wrong, God is making a promise to you this afternoon that He is going to do a new thing. And the question here is said, shall He not know it? Will you not perceive what God has in store for you? Will not your heart beam in hope for what He has prepared for you? So tonight I want to encourage all of us. Forget all the bad things that have been happening to you. Forget all of the things that have not been going on right. And look forward in hope, knowing that God's word cannot return to Him void unless they fulfill the purpose. So if God says He's going to do a new thing for you, then He will do a new thing for you. And I also hope that as we will be having this presentation this evening, it will be a new thing for us, and that it will help us in some way to propel our life in the future, and even for us to be a source of motivation and guide and help to others who may be having challenges in the areas that will be discussed this afternoon. So I do hope that all of us will be encouraged by this word, and I will repeat the Bible verse again for emphasis and as something that when we finish tonight, you can go back, you can read it again, and you can just absorb the promise that God has made for you. And again, the scripture I read is from Isaiah 43, verses 18 and 19. I think I saw Brother Tajay Mitchell on the platform earlier.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so Tajay, I am going to ask you to pray for us as we close the devotional exercise.
All right, let us pray, everyone. Dear kind and eternal Father, we want to thank you for bringing us this night here to learn about substance abuse. Dear God, I ask that whatever it is that is discussed in this seminar, that it may be vital to us, and we are able to not only hear, but understand and exercise this and share it to others. We want to thank you for this opportunity for life. Bless us, keep us, and guide us, I pray. Amen. You're muted. Your mic is muted, sister.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I was checking to see if Sister McFarlane is online. I am not seeing her, so I will go ahead and introduce the presenter to you this afternoon. And I am happy that we are starting early because this will give the presenter more time to present the information, that she would have prepared for us. And so to bring this presentation this afternoon is Miss Shirley Platt. So she is the substance officer at the National Council on Drug Abuse, and she works in the parish of Hanover. There is not a set office in Hanover, and so she operates out of different government offices, such as the probation office. I think she's also at the child diversion office, and there are other places in Hanover that she will offer the service. And when she comes more, she will be able to say more about that. One thing I know about Miss Platt is that she has a passion for the work that she does. I have seen her dealing with young people, and how she operates is just amazing. And I do know that when she comes to present tonight, that you will love her, and you will see the type of person I am actually talking about. She is wonderful, a graceful lady. She has a pleasant persona. And so it is my pleasure and joy this afternoon to welcome our first presenter for the series, Miss Shirley Platt. So I crave for her your undivided attention, and I do hope that as she comes to us tonight, that we will learn enough to be change agents and to help others who may be having substance abuse issues. So, Miss Platt, it is a pleasure having you tonight. Over to you now.
Good evening, everyone. I feel so blessed by that introduction. Thank you so much. I feel as if I've been eulogized. I don't have to be at my funeral. Thank you,
You're
dear.
welcome.
That was so sweet. I hardly recognize myself. All right. It is wonderful to be here with you guys. I'm trying to see if I can find some way to minimize this strip so that I can see my slides properly. As you heard, my name is Shirley Platt from National Council on Drug Abuse. And I could speak to you on the most, how long do I have, by the way?
You have 30 minutes base, and then you also have about 10 minutes for question and answer. So that's about 40 minutes, question and answer and presentation.
Okay, I find it useful to set my timer because I can tend to get carried away. All right, so due to the limitations of time, I think my colleagues know that I can talk forever. So I'm going to begin speaking about the upcoming drugs. We could speak about the most common drugs in Jamaica, the most widely abused, which are alcohol, ganja, and tobacco. But we're actually seeing an upsurge in drugs like vapes. There seems to be an epidemic in the schools of vaping. So I'm going to explain to you what vaping is and show you some examples. And if we have time, we can move on to the Molly, which I'm sure you've also heard about. So let's see if I can get it to move. All right. So drug using, as we say, is dynamic. When I first came into the business so many years ago, we were talking about the standard ganja mainly, and alcohol and some tobacco. The numbers for tobacco users were dropping. They were falling because older people were getting sick or they were dying. And the younger people don't really like the smell of tobacco, which, you know, is very unpleasant. And it's the expense of it. So the numbers of tobacco users were drawing down. So when it says dynamic, it's changing, it's ever changing. So I'm going to speak to you about one particular emerging drug trend and the implications of it. I'm not going to go as far as embalming fluid, I think, and I'll let you know where to seek help. So I'm going to move swiftly past these, and this is what I have on my PowerPoint, but I don't think we're going to get past the first two, possibly three if you're interested and we have the time. So an emerging drug is electronic cigarettes. I started with a preamble about tobacco because the active ingredient in electronic cigarettes is nicotine. So it's another, how they devised it was, or why they say they devised it, was to help people who wanted to quit cigarettes and help to reduce the harmful effects of cigarettes because it has tar in it. If you've ever seen the end of a cigarette after it's been smoked, you'll see a blackish, yellowish color on the previously white tip. That is the tar. People call it nicotine, maybe some nicotine, but mostly tar, which is a distant cousin to what is put on the roads. So it is something that occludes water. It is thick and it's not water soluble. So you can imagine when that goes down into your lungs, it coats the alveoli, the little sacs in your lungs, and makes breathing harder. It also incites diseases such as bronchitis and pneumonia, and most seriously of all, cancer. So to try to reduce that, they said, let's put the nicotine, which is what is the addictive substance, into something that's pleasant. So people can still suck on this tube as they do on the cigarette and achieve their hit of their drug. However, to my mind, I think, this is me personally, this is not factual, this is just my opinion, is that they saw that their numbers of their money was dwindling, their income was dwindling. And so they put flavors in to catch the young people. And because that's what the clients come to me with. I do drug counseling. And when a young person has been caught using a vape, but they say, but miss, it's not a drug, it's just flavor. Well, I like to explain that flavor is to do with your tongue. Your tongue tastes flavor. Your lungs don't need flavor. So I think it's a trick to just try to get more people using nicotine. Then when they cannot afford the expensive vape pens, they will rock back onto the cigarette, and then the companies will start making their money again, and people will continue to die of cancer. So what is an electronic cigarette? It's a battery-operated device that you can use to inhale an aerosol, which typically contains nicotine, flavorings, and other chemicals. The act of sucking on this electronic cigarette. Sorry, I have two cats and they're having a fight. It is called vaping. So vaping is the act of inhaling and exhaling vapor from an electronic cigarette. In the background, you see they come in so many varieties. It is scary. They have them that look like marker pens. So your child could have it in their pocket and you think it's just a marker pen, but it is a vape. I recently got a WhatsApp message with one that was a vape drink. It was like one of those plastic cups, sanitary cup looking thing with a straw in it. And it was actually vape in a liquid form. Scary.
Miss Clark?
So the components of yes, ma'am.
Sorry to disrupt you a bit. I am wondering if you could turn your video on so persons could see you as you present.
I'm afraid if I turn on my video, I may not be able to present because my internet is weak.
Oh, okay. I understand.
When I put on the video, it tends to drop and I would go out.
All right, I do understand. Yes.
All right. So components of an electronic cigarette. 4 components is the cartridge or reservoir which holds the e-liquid. I hope I explained clearly enough that, well, I'll show you later. So the cartridge or reservoir holds the e-liquid, which has the nicotine in and the flavorings in and other chemicals. They have a heating element and a power source, which is a battery, often rechargeable, and a mouthpiece that's used to inhale the vapor. So it works by converting the e-liquid into vapor. So when you press a button or suck on it, it heats up the little coil. I don't know if anybody remembers the old-fashioned car cigarette lighters. It's a coil like that. When you're pressing the cigarette lighter, those of you who have a little age like myself, you're pressing the cigarette lighter, the coil heats up and it heats the liquid that's in the cartridge. So then it turns it into a vapor like steam, like when you boil a kettle, and then you pull on that, you suck on that, and it goes down into your lungs, which I don't believe God created your lungs to have anything except fresh air in them. So I'm a little bit biased against this item. So the rechargeable battery or device is either turned on by motion sensors when you pull on it, when you suck on it, or by a button which you press on the side of the device. Now we have closed systems. They're sometimes called e-cigs. They're long, slender devices that do not need to be disassembled or refilled. They're throwaway type. These types of e-cigarettes consist of 2 parts. I don't know how that got in there. Excuse the line in there. And a tank which is sealed and contains a liquid, and a rechargeable device which heats the coil, turning the e-liquid into vapor. Cigar-likes, that's the word, are preferred by many because they're portable, easy to use, and can be disposed of easily after use, although they're banning them in America, I understand, to try to keep the children from them. So this is your standard closed system e-cigarette. You see it's broken down below, and that's what the ones that first came out look like, the ones before they started disguising them. They even have them that look literally like a pen. So your child may have a pen in their top pocket and it's an e-cigarette. So they're also called vape pens. Some are bigger and bulkier than closed e-cigarettes, cigar-likes. They're not disposable and can be used repeatedly, which means that you can buy a cartridge to refill it. You change the cartridge out, or they have others that you can actually change the liquid or put more liquid in, which is more dangerous, I believe, because you can put any kind of liquid in there, including ganja or ganja oil. So again, the rechargeable device, a clear atomizer, which is the canister that contains the liquid and a mouthpiece. Here's an open system. So you see the cartridge there, number 2, which holds the liquid. So it's not a great deal of liquid, and these sell for about $2,000, I believe. One of my clients tells me she gets the stush ones. They're $5,000 in Montego Bay. So you see, it's not a cheap something. And if it's a child who's using it and their money runs out and they're addicted to nicotine, I can easily see that they would have to go and smoke a cigarette to get their fix. So mods now are bigger. They come in more variety or ranges. Here's a list. Here they are. They obviously hold much more liquid, so they can last longer. And I see a lot of people on TikTok and on videos using these quite blatantly. Whereas once upon a time, people smoked and they stopped people smoking cigarettes on videos. Now we have them vaping quite freely, even in shows. I see them in movies vaping with these mods. They seem to be the fashionable thing. So other terms are e-cigs, e-pipes, hookah pens, vapes, vape pens, or e-hookahs. This is the background picture is a nice big one. You see how big that cartridge is? Can hold a whole heap. So there's a range of ones. Some that look like cigarettes, some that look like pipes that your grandfather used to have, some look like cigars, wide range. The silver one that is 1 to 3rd from the left, I have actually seen that at the Ganja Festival in Negril being used with Ganja liquid in it. A word about Ganja liquid is that they tend not to put the natural Ganja that we sell in Jamaica here in it. It tends to be a synthetic Ganja. I don't know if it lasts better or whatever, but they cannot make good money from Ganja, Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol that we have in Jamaica, because it grows like weeds. That's why it got the nickname. It's very common, easy to grow, so they cannot patent it. They cannot keep it to themselves and make their own money off it. So they have created a synthetic Ganja, which can be put into these pipes and inhaled. And I have never heard of anybody dying from our Delta-9 cannabis, but I have heard of severe illness and death from the synthetic one. So that's another risk from specific to the e-pens or e-cigarettes. Now, this diagram, maybe you've seen advertising boards for hookah parties or parties where they will rent you a hookah. Not the old-fashioned type of the ladies of the night, but this smoking instrument. Often they have more than one of you see the pipe, the wiry thing, the black thing, as a mouthpiece and a hose. Often they will have 3 or 4 hoses attached, so 3 or 4 persons can use them at the same time. I don't think that's hygienic, for one, but the very act of using a hookah is unhealthy in itself, so it's not much difference. So as you see, the tobacco goes in the top at the green part where it says hookah tobacco. The bowl is lit. There's the coal tray there. When you pull on the pipe, it sucks the smoke down past the heat and into the water. It's usually water, but I have heard of persons using alcohol down there. That's just to compound it. And then when the vapor rises up through there, it actually cleans out some of the tar and some of the poisons, but you're then inhaling the pure nicotine or ganja or whatever they put into the hookah through that little thin black pipe, as you see the young man is doing there. So is it dangerous? Research has shown that one chemical called NNAL, which is known to cause lung cancer, was 97% lower in e-cigarettes compared to smoking cigarettes. But research has shown that e-cigarettes are safer to use than regular smoker, as there's no tar produced and inhaled, but we still need to be cautious because nicotine affects the brain. It increases the levels of a chemical messenger in the brain called dopamine. In the middle of our brain, we have this part of the brain called an amygdala. The amygdala is the pleasure center. When, I don't know if you like me, you love ackee and saltfish. When you eat your ackee and saltfish and you feel nice and you cock up your foot, that is the part of your brain that's wiggling in happiness, the amygdala. Well, the dopamine does that. You're eating something nice or hugging your husband or wife releases dopamine in your body to a small extent, but drugs imitate that. It makes the dopamine flood your brain, so you get euphoria, which is longer lasting than the natural one. It can deplete the receptors. I hope I don't get too technical for you, but they get kind of dull, kind of get used to it. So they become reduced so that the natural things that make you feel good don't make you feel as good anymore, which explains why 95% of people who vape become depressed. Depression is often a result of drug use because the drug wears out the feel good in your brain. Your brain kind of says, I'm tired of that. Yeah, you did that earlier. And the receptors tend to close down or shut down. So you cannot receive as much pleasure. So you have to keep using the drug to get any form of pleasure. That's why cocaine addicts are so strongly addicted. They would sell anything or do anything to get their drug because they cannot feel normal. One drug addict, we have a video of him saying that his cocaine is his wife. He doesn't need a woman. He has his cocaine. Drugs are very dangerous and very powerful things because they affect the parts of the brain that controls reward. If you're rewarded for something, you're going to do it again. So it obviously motivates you to keep using it. So the nicotine in e-liquids is readily absorbed into your bloodstream. Upon entering the bloodstream, in fact, the quickest way to get any substance to your brain is to smoke it, to inhale it, to suck it in. When you suck in air, it goes to your lungs. Your blood takes it from your lungs, and the first place it feeds is your brain because your brain is important. It's the center, it's the computer of your body. So the brain gets fed with the air first, the oxygen first. But when you adulterate the air that you're pulling in, your brain is getting less oxygen, which is not good for it. If you're oxygen deprived, your brain cells can die and you can become brain dead. So you're reducing the amount of oxygen and you're also putting some forms of poison into your brain. And it's that poisoning that releases the dopamine and makes you have that euphoric response. So as I say, it releases the feel good. Epinephrine is another feel good hormone as well as the dopamine. This stimulates the central nervous system and increases your blood pressure, your breathing and heart rate. And how many of us already know people that suffer from high blood pressure? Smoking and drinking can increase your blood pressure. It can make your veins, your capillaries shrink. Constrict is the word they use, which means that the blood has to work harder to push the blood through the veins. Your heart can increase in size, which, unlike your arm muscles, is not a good thing. Nicotine addiction is the single largest cause of preventable deaths because the more you're rewarded by your brain for smoking it, the more you're going to smoke it, the more danger there is to you. So be smart, don't start. Now I have sufficient time. Any questions on vaping?
Feel free to ask your questions on vaping.
I might add that the younger you start, the more likely you are to become addicted to any drugs. If you start before the age of 13, say, you are 75% more likely to become an addict in later life. Also, it's genetic. If your parents smoke or drink, you are more likely to smoke or drink. All right, so I can move on to Molly. I would like to tell you about Molly. Molly, you may have heard of. It's, let's see, a drug that used to be the powder or crystal form of MDMA. They used to call it ecstasy. They say it has changed now, but really and truly, it's the same thing. Nowadays, Molly is more often made up of a toxic mix of lab-created chemicals And the Drug Enforcement Agency of America says using Molly is like playing Russian roulette. Reason being, there's no standard recipe. Like Christmas come, you know that different people make their cake and everyone is different. In fact, sometimes my mother never used a recipe, so every time the cake would be slightly different. And that is the same with Molly. You can put anything you like in it. If you want to make more money, remember it's made illegal. It's not made in a proper lab like Advil or something that is standardized. So those who are making it, they're criminals because it's illegal. And they put whatever, they could put baking powder in it to stretch it. Some, put scouring powder if they don't care about people's life. So it's really dangerous to take Molly because you really don't know what you're putting into your body. Here's a video. It's very fast, so listen carefully.
Carefree, loved up, wide awake. MDMA boosts the feel-good chemicals in your brain: serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. MDMA also increases heat production and stops your hypothalamus from regulating brain temperature. In high doses, whether you're dancing or chilling, your brain gets dangerously hot. Overheating, even by a few degrees, can be fatal or damage your brain cells. It can make your heart race and your jaw clench. When MDMA wears off, you can feel down or anxious. Any amount is risky and it affects everyone differently. The more you take, the more often, the more damage you can do. Respect your brain.
I hope you were able to hear that. Everybody could hear it?
Yes.
Awesome. So that gave you a lot of information about your brain, what it does to your brain. When I used to go and address commercial sex workers, ladies of the night, they would tell me horror stories about taking it so that they could do immoral things with strangers for money. So they might look at the man and they find the man very unappealing, but one of them told me she was forced by the bar owner to take a Molly, it was ecstasy at the time, and drink some alcohol. And she said the next thing she knew, she was back dancing on her pole, and she doesn't know how many persons she earned some money with. So can you imagine? And, it still scares me when I think of it. What would happen to our young people, our young girls, for instance, when they take this? If it takes away all your inhibitions, Lord knows what you could do. And I've heard some stories since the new Molly thing has become a craze. And schoolgirls behind the school with lots of schoolboys and persons not being satisfied with the normal relations between a man and woman and needing more and more and more. So it's incredibly dangerous substance, not just for the effect it has on your body in terms of physiological, but the psychological changes. It's like a demon, basically. It just changes you. So it can take many different forms. It can look different. It's most often found in a capsule or powder. The DEA has also seen Molly applied to blotting paper like LSD and in injectable form. It also dissolves very easily in your drinks. All right, someone who's taking Molly now is probably ingesting dangerous synthetic drugs that have not been tested and are produced in widely varying strengths. Only 13% of the Molly seized in New York State the previous 4 years actually contained any MDMA, and even then it was often mixed with other drugs. It can be mixed with the fentanyl, which we've heard about, which is killing people in America, the opioid epidemic that they have. So where do they come from? I actually asked the head of the narcotics division in the Western region about this. We had a seminar year before last, and he said that the ingredients come in various packages, so they cannot be identified as the components or the ingredients for Molly. Somebody could bring in something for their medication, which is totally innocuous, but when put together, it creates this monster drug. So Chinese chemists sell the drugs online. I don't think it's just Chinese, actually. I think South America does as well. Middlemen in the United States and around the world, including Jamaica, cut it with other substances and either place it in capsules, because you can buy a capsule maker, or sell it as powder. They can actually press it into tablets. And as you saw from the first pictures, they tend to press pretty pictures into it, like flowers and smiley faces. I wonder who that's addressed to. I wonder who that's trying to catch. Who likes pretty things? No young people. Anyway, other kinds of synthetic drugs can be sprayed onto plant material and smoked, such as synthetic ganja. They actually can spray the liquid or soak ganja in the liquid form of molly, and people will dry it out and sell it, and you don't even realize that you're a molly addict until it's too late. It's difficult for law enforcement to keep track of all the chemicals, as I said, coming in. The DEA said it's seen around 200 individual chemical compounds since 2009 and 80 new compounds since 2012. So as soon as a compound is discovered and banned, another one is created to take its place. It's like whack-a-mole. I don't know if you know that game. They're constantly trying to keep it down. What molly actually does, the lab-created chemicals mimic the effects of MDMA. Most of them are central nervous system stimulants that cause euphoric highs, which I was just describing to you, particularly your amygdala. They can also cause intense, prolonged panic attacks, psychosis and seizures, rapid heartbeat, high blood pressure, blood vessel constriction and sweating. That's one of the components that we see, one of the symptoms, profuse sweating. It can prevent your body from regulating temperature, which means that you don't sweat. You're very hot, but you're not sweating, which can kill you. After the drug wears off, the chemicals can cause devastating depression. Again, as I said, it's wearing out the feel-good receptors in your brain. Several of these compounds have caused deaths. And I have personally heard one of the students at a recent school I went to speak at told me that his uncle had died after being given. He said he was given molly. It's possible the uncle took the molly, who knows? But the basic thing is they thought he'd passed out with alcohol, put him to bed, and the next morning he was stone cold dead. And when they did the autopsy, they found molly was in his system. So what makes molly so dangerous? Well, I think we've already heard a lot about the dangers because of the toxic mix of unknown chemicals. I mean, you would never pick up something off the street and just put it in your system. So why take something you don't know where it comes from? There are batch-to-batch variances. I have heard persons saying that they took a molly one day, they took a whole molly one day, it didn't do anything to them. The next day they took, or next week they took half a molly and it blew their minds. So you can never, ever know. Even in the same bag, coming from the same bag, they can have different effects. Unlike MDMA and other illegal drugs that have known effects on the body, the formulas for these synthetic drugs keep changing. They're manufactured with no regard to how they affect the user. It's all about the Benjamins. The amount of active ingredients can be dangerously different because the dosing for these sorts of drugs are in the micrograms, but someone who's not even a chemist can make it in a laboratory, in your bathroom, in your kitchen. So the room for error is tremendous. And in America, they've seen a lot of deaths with some of the compounds. So how can you detect it? Effects can vary widely depending on the chemical, but while users are under the influence, they may exhibit the following symptoms: sweating, jaw clenching. They actually make a soother, a baby soother that is actually solid rubber for an adult. It's big, and they clench on that so that they don't damage the enamel on their teeth. They can have violent or bizarre behavior and psychosis. Hypersexualization is one of the symptoms that I have heard of. Again, anecdotally, when I go and speak in the schools and when I speak in presentations such as this, people will tell me of their own experiences. After the drug's worn off, the user may show signs of depression or may not be able to get out of bed for an extended period of time. Again, I have a friend who's doing her practicum at a local school, and she's going to be a guidance counselor, and she told me that she was surprised at how many children were depressed. She said you cannot see it on the surface. They're not showing it. But when you talk to them, when you speak to these children individually, they're very depressed. They're very unhappy. And this seems to have occurred since COVID. And you know, with depression comes suicidal ideation. So if you add this drug use on top, so they feel even more depressed, I am frightened for our young people. I really am. So how widespread is the problem? It is huge. At the time that this PowerPoint was put together, it wasn't even as large as it is today. It's one of the fastest emerging drugs in the United States and in Jamaica. It's a multi-billion dollar business. In 2 days, the DEA seized 95 million of drug traffickers during a crackdown. Oh, it is off drug traffickers during a crackdown. It's a growing problem in Jamaica. In 2030, you see as far away as 2013, the Observer published an article on it. The comments that followed the article outlined that there are some discrepancies with the name of the drug, but now it has settled down as Molly. We're not even using the first old-fashioned name. We're just using Molly. And it's alarming is that the drug is used by ravers because it keeps them energetic. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. They get energetic. They can dance all night. When I was in England many years ago, 30 years ago, they had the young people go out to all-night parties they call raves. They would sit on the music speaker boxes and enjoy the vibrations and become hypersexualized, dance all night, and do other things that you and I would not do in public. It's not so new anymore. I need to take out this slide. Any questions about Molly? Or do I have time to move on to ganja edibles? I seem to have stopped my timer.
I think you have, we could allow 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick.
And then we have another 7 or so for the questions.
Okay.
Yes,
all right,
5
so
more
ganja.
minutes.
All right, thank you. So ganja edibles, we know about ganja is cannabis, also known as cannabis. In Jamaica, the word ganja is used to describe the dried flowers. It is the flowers of the female plant that are smoked, and those are the ones that are psychoactive. Scientific names are cannabis sativa and cannabis indica. One speeds you up, one slows you down. I don't know which one does what, and when it's dried, you can't tell the difference anyway. So we know all the street names. We can move quickly from that. We know what it looks like. We know that nowadays it is still not legal, but they have decriminalized it for medicinal use. And an adult may have up to 2 ounces of ganja without being arrested for it. He's supposed to get a ticket and a fine, but I have never seen that happen as yet. But that is officially by law, that's what's supposed to happen. Anything over 2 ounces, you can be locked up. And the fines are much larger than they used to be. So the main ingredient, the psychoactive ingredient, is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. It causes persons to feel a calm euphoria. Everybody reacts differently, but that's the main thing. Now, because they cannot, as I mentioned earlier, they cannot copyright the delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. There's another one called cannabidiol, which is CBD, which is more health benefits, and it's not psychoactive. But in Jamaica, we tend to grow the one that's psychoactive. It tends to be higher in the male plant, which is not smoked. All right, so because they cannot make enough money from the delta-9, they have synthesized, falsely made delta-8, which is what is used in most of the edibles, which is the ganja-induced foods, as we see here. So edibles are food products infused with ganja extract, and it tends to be if you look on the packets of them, you will see a triangle, and I need to adjust this and put some of those in for you next time. The triangle, which is the delta sign, and an 8 beside it, or It might have a cannabis leaf on it, or it might say cannabis. So we have to look out on those, because I don't know if you remember, a couple of months ago, some children were poisoned by cannabis sweets, gummy bears, sour belts they were called, in Ocho Rios Primary School. A vendor outside was selling them. And if you look at the packet, it's wickedness, because if you look at the packet, it says not for sale to children. It actually gives you a prescription of how often you should, one every 6 hours. And you know, so children are not going to eat one sweetie in 6 hours. But it actually says for adults over 21 on the packet, and they were selling it to children. The children had to go to a hospital. Some had to have drips to clean their blood, because once the danger of it is that it goes down into your stomach and is digested and in your bloodstream before you have feel the effects of it, unlike smoking, which gets to your brain in seconds. So the food products are infused with ganja extract. They come in many forms. And I think we're all familiar, we've heard about the cookies, but now we're having candies, gummies, chocolates, lozenges, beverages. They can be homemade. They used to be all homemade, but now they're getting very sophisticated. Look at this. This is jam, ganja jam. If you don't look carefully at some of these packets, you could be fooled. They look like everyday ordinary sweeties. Look at that. You'd pick that up and you'd just nosh away. And who do you think those lollipops are geared towards? Who primarily eats lollipops? And there's some ganja drinks. It's kind of a wickedness, really, when you think about it. Look at these things. Who are these geared towards? Frightening. So you have to be careful what you're giving your children even nowadays. I'm not sure if you're of the age. I know you're the youth arm, so perhaps you're not parents of children, but be aware of it for yourselves. So in Jamaica, you notice that more men actually consume ganja edibles than women across the board, mostly in drinks. Ganja tea has been very popular. A lot of parents, I've heard, give their children ganja tea. One man gave his daughter ganja tea because he heard that ganja was the weed of wisdom. So he gave her a cup of ganja tea every morning, and she went to school and slept. She didn't do very well. 9.9%, that's 10%, which is quite a high amount. Actually, will eat a ganja cookie or something. Smaller amount will use it as concentrate. Some people use it as soap. It actually can be absorbed through the skin and get into the bloodstream that way. So why would people use edibles? Mostly curiosity. Peer pressure. Try this, no man. Have this, no man. Why you're soft? Take it, man. Nothing wrong. Rebellion, or maybe because they find it relaxing. There's a documentary called, it's called Should I Smoke Dope?, where they canvass some people in England, and this old lady who has severe pain actually eats ganja edibles. She makes them herself. She makes ganja chocolates, I believe it was, to ease her pain. And they've arrested her several times, but she keeps doing it. And you know, in Jamaica, ganja is so culturally accepted. It's often used for medicinal purposes, the teas and the tonics. You know, most grandmas, when I was younger, had their bottle of white rum with ganja soaked in it. And if you had a headache or a bellyache, they would take some out and sap your belly or your stomach. As I said, there's a type of ganja, the indica or the sativa, I'm not sure, remember which one, which increases your work capacity, mainly for manual labor. If you're doing something that tends to be mindless, like say chopping a yard, you don't have to think about chopping a yard. So your mind is free to roam, because ganja can stop you being focused. That's why it's so dangerous for people who are studying, for young people who are growing up and their brains are still developing and the pathways to learning are still growing. If they become addicted to ganja, or if they continue to use ganja, because people often say they don't get addicted, but they do. But they don't like to confess that they're addicted, but they do get addicted. It stops them actually learning, because often classes can be boring, or the topic can be boring, and they feel that, I got that, I understand it, I know what it's about, so they don't have to repeat and repeat and repeat. You remember when you're doing your times table? You have to go over and over and over. That's how you fix something in your brain. But when you smoke ganja, the ganja takes that focus away from you. You say, I have it, and you move on to something else. So if you're chopping the yard, ganja can work. But if you're trying to do mathematics, say, sorry, the cats again. If you're trying to do mathematics, or if you're trying to do accounts or something, it's really not good for you. It increases your creativity because your brain is outside the box. I think Bob Marley said he used to smoke a pound a week or something like that. And often young men think it's a rite of passage. They have to try the ganja. Often when they go into high school, around about the age of 12 to 13 is when they start. And for Rastafarians, it's a holy sacrament, just like the communion wine for Catholics. The effects are immediately you feel calm, relaxed, and sleepy. You can see that's not good for your studying. Your reaction time slows down. You can see that's not good for your driving. Your perception is impaired. That's not good for anything. You lose a sense of time, makes you late for work. Throat, mouth, and lips get dry. Eyes get bloodshot, eyesight blurs, your eyes can get shiny looking, and your heart beats faster. So that's the dangerous thing, huh?
As marijuana becomes legalized throughout North America, many are trying edibles for the first time as a healthier option. But with edible marijuana providing such a different experience than smoking, how does it work, and is eating pot actually better for you? When you heat cannabis, you effectively change the chemical makeup of compounds within it called cannabinoids. Smoking heats it to around 800 degrees Celsius and converts THCA to delta-9 THC, which binds to receptors in your brain, making them continually fire and causing your imagination, thoughts, and perceptions to magnify. This is why every thought can feel like a significant one. And because it travels straight from your lungs into the bloodstream and to your brain, the drug works within minutes and lasts about 2 to 3 hours. But when making edibles, the weed is heated to around 150 degrees Celsius, burning less of the actual plant and minimizing carcinogens. THC is lipophilic, not water-soluble, so the activated THC must be dissolved into something fatty like oil or butter. And once this substance is consumed, the onset of the high is delayed as the drug is absorbed more slowly through your gut. But this high typically lasts 4 to 8 hours, and most report feeling more high than compared to smoking marijuana. This is because when you eat edible weed, the THC is first metabolized by the liver before entering the bloodstream, and here delta-9 THC also becomes 11-OH-THC, which passes the brain barrier more rapidly and is a more potent chemical. So using the same amount of marijuana, you actually get more high with edibles because it ends up creating both delta-9 THC and 11-OH-THC, which is a stronger compound. And because there are more psychotropic types of cannabinoids acting on your neurons, you'll be high for longer. Of course, you also get to skip out on the toxic chemicals that smoking provides, like carbon monoxide, bronchial irritants, and tumor initiators. Smoking anything means you're inhaling cancer-causing molecules, so if you can get high without smoking, it will be healthier for your lungs and body. The downside? It's much harder to control the high you'll get, because it can take up to 1 to 2 hours to feel the full effects, and the dosage can vary significantly. Modulating the effects, or titrating as it's called, is much more difficult, and as a result you can end up a lot higher than you intended to. But unlike those who consume too much alcohol, opioids, or other drugs, you won't be suffering any serious long-term harm, toxicity, or lethal overdose if you do consume more than you intended. If you've ever wondered why marijuana gives you the munchies, check out our ASAP Thought video that breaks down the science behind that by clicking the screen.
Okay, so you realize, or you heard, that it gets into your system far quicker when you inhale it within seconds because it goes to the lungs. Remember I described that? But of course it has to be digested and go through your liver before you feel it. I've been at Ganja Festival in Negril for work, and the person came to the tent beside me, which was selling ganja edibles. The man and the husband, the woman and the husband ate ganja cookies, and they were like, "Oh, I'm not feeling anything. You feel anything? I'm not feeling anything. Let's have another one." And they ate 3 cookies each. And they went away feeling that they'd wasted their money. 2 hours later, they came back on stretchers to the health tent beside me, and they had to go to the hospital. I'm told it's a terrible feeling because you cannot get it out of your system. It's in your blood. It's not, you can't even pump the stomach. So once you get over high, and you get 100% of the ganja when you eat it, as opposed to maybe 10 to 12% when it's burnt in a smoke. So intense reactions can be nausea and vomiting, panic attack, hallucinations, and psychotic episodes, which means you can mad out. And persons who have schizophrenia in the family are far more likely, well, they're prone to getting schizophrenia themselves. So thank you very much. I have managed to cover 3 drugs. I hope I didn't go too fast and you were able to absorb some of, not the drug itself, but the knowledge about it. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Miss Platt. Now is the time, everyone, to ask whatever questions you have. But before the first person decide to ask a question, someone typed in the group, Miss Platt. They were wondering, someone said they were assuming that only teens vape, but based on the presentation, I see that more person does. But this person was asking if it is because vaping can be done discreetly, why a lot of young people do it.
That's one of the reasons. Another reason is that it's the hype now. It's the in thing. You know, it's a pick me follow fashion. They see somebody doing it. They think it looks cool. They want to do it as well. And
Okay,
yes,
great.
they can hide and do it in school, and teacher doesn't know they can do it. Somebody could be vaping in church and you don't even realize, because it doesn't let out a lot of steam. And they don't, you're right, I'm looking at the chat now. A lot of them don't know the harm behind it. The main thing I'm afraid of, apart from promiscuity, not knowing yourself and not remembering what you did the night before, and people can take advantage of, serious advantage of you. Male and female can be taken advantage of. They can give, I have heard of people being given guns and told to go and shoot John Brown, and they go and shoot John Brown once they take a Molly. So Molly and can be put in the vape, remember. So these drugs are just overall dangerous.
Thank you for that. Any more questions? Remember, everyone, you have a specialist in the field right here now. So ask the question that you need to ask so that you are better able to educate persons within your family, persons at your church who may need this information. So don't be afraid to ask your questions.
It doesn't have to be just about those 3 drugs either. Amen.
A question from me, Miss Platt.
Yes,
is there a particular drug? It doesn't have to be these 3 that you have talked about that causes a lot of death in Jamaica, especially amongst young people.
Alcohol. It can kill you physically as well as it can kill you from the fact that you're out of your mind. You're not paying attention. You're riding your bike. You're driving your car. You're doing something. You're risking your life basically in various things that you're doing because your inhibitions are reduced. I've heard of young ladies going out. You know that most men know that if they want to have sexual relations with a young lady and she says no, if they get her drunk, they're far more likely to be able to take advantage of her. I have also heard of it happening to boys being sexually assaulted. They go out for drinks with the big men and the big men sexually assault them. Car accidents, major from alcohol. And alcohol is actually something that can kill you. If you're an alcoholic and you try to stop cold turkey, so to speak, you can die from withdrawal symptoms. As well as when you're an alcoholic, you don't tend to eat, so you get malnourished. You can get ulcers, which is like holes in your stomach, causes holes. It's like sores, and it causes holes in your stomach. So the alcohol, when you drink it, leaks out into your gut, and it's incredibly painful, and it can actually cause you to die. I had one client that died from alcohol like that, as well as alcohol poisoning, because alcohol in itself is a poison. It's has different dilutions, like beer might be the most diluted, then wine, and then spirits, which the young people seem to be gravitating to now. One time they used to drink beer, now they're drinking the strong white rums, and those will affect them more. It will make them drunker. It will damage them more. It will make them more addicted. They get cirrhosis of the liver. They'll get ED, which is erectile dysfunction. It's incredibly damaging to your body, as well as killing your brain cells. Alcohol is a killer, stone cold killer. And remember, remember in the name, when you get drunk, another word for being drunk is intoxicated. Toxic meaning poisoned. You're poisoned. That's why you get that tipsy feeling.
Question for you, Miss Platt.
Sure.
It's good hearing about these things, but once you have discovered, say a teacher or a parent discovers that a child is, say, vaping,
Yes.
how does the parent get help for such a person?
Call me. I'm the only drug abuse counselor in the parish. We have NCDA has one counselor per parish. We do what we can. It's basically, it has to be counseling. If you could, you see young people, they don't tend not to listen to their parents. They listen to you, but they don't listen to you. They think that you don't know anything. So the more information you have and the more training you have to do counseling. We have something called motivational counseling, where you highlight the discrepancies between what they're doing and what result they want to get. You use different tactics to try to get them to want to stop, because if they do not want to stop, they will not stop. So even when you tell them the dangers, you know that young people have this magic thinking that nothing can do them. You all know that, right? You see them when they wheelie down Main Street in Lucy in the traffic in the rain, and you and I are thinking, my God, they could slip and bust their head. They're not thinking like that. Nothing can do them. It happened to their friend last week, but that's because he can't ride and them better than them. So we have to try to get them away from that magic thinking to reality, and it's not easy. It's not easy. So basically, go to the professionals. You can try, but the nagging not going to help, because they will more listen to their friends than they listen to you. And it tends to be bad company that introduce the drugs to them, and then they stop going to church because they don't want church people to smell the ganja or the cigarette or the alcohol on them.
All right. So if I may, Miss Platt, I work with the mental health team for Hanover. You are right when you said counseling. So just to add to your answer, the psychologists do help with the counseling sessions. So if a child is involved in drug abuse, they can also be helped through the psychology that does psychotherapy.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It's just that I know that you guys have a lot on your hands already.
Yeah, we do. But I'm just letting you know, just more information shared.
Yes, and there's guidance
because
clinic,
like you rightfully said, most time is a reason why they do it. So the psychologist will help to identify the reason and talk them, walk them through not having to do it. But like you said, if they're determined, it's not so easy.
Yes. And you have to, sometimes you cannot do anything about the reason. It could be that they saw quite often, very often, they've seen a family member be killed, shot.
Yes. Yeah.
Graphic. And as every time they close their eyes, they see that head exploding or whatever. So they can't sleep, they can't function.
So right. And so they resolve to the drugs. So in that case, now the psychologist will give them another option or another way of falling asleep rather than drugs.
Right. So this is what we also have to do. We have to address, you can't just address the drug because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So we have to look into the reasons behind. Quite often it's family dysfunction.
All right, great. We have time for 2 more questions. Miss Platt, could you now turn your video on so that persons can at least get an idea as to who you are, so they can match the face with the voice and the presentation?
Okay.
In the meanwhile, we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay, I'm not seeing if I have.
All right. So one of my question is for Miss Platt. Where do you go for this assistance, especially if you're an adult? So you are a drug abuse person and you need help, and we're talking about here in Hanover. Do you have a
Okay.
center? Do you need a referral? How do you go about coming to see you?
All right. If it's a child, it's good if they can be referred through the school.
Okay.
If not, you can call 940. No, yeah, 940-2240, or directly to me, 564-8535. The 940 is the office in Montego Bay.
Okay.
It'll take a while for them to get to me, but if you want to contact me directly, it's 564-8535, and we make an appointment for you. I work from the probation office on a Tuesday and the Justice Center, Millers Drive, on a Wednesday, but you cannot just
Okay.
drop in because I would have clients most
Right.
of
So that's why I was asking. As I know the children use school referral, but adult, I wasn't sure if they could just walk in. So
No.
what if you can you at least come to the office to make the appointment, or it can only be done through telephone?
Telephone is better because I may
Okay.
not actually be there, or I may have a client in front of me, and I won't be able to take the time away to see you. It has been quite slow at the probation office lately, as Miss McFarlane can tell you. So, yeah.
The
It's
appointment is the most concern that I was. How do you get to? So thank you.
call or WhatsApp me. Call or WhatsApp me
Okay.
on that
Thank
same
you.
number, the 564 number 8535, and I can easily make an appointment for the person.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Final question, anyone? And I have posted Miss Platt's number in the group chat. So persons who did not get it, you can look and you can have it just in case you need her service.
Thank you. I've turned on my camera, but I'm not seeing myself.
Yes, we are not seeing you at all.
This is weird. I need to put a picture. I'll try put a see if I can figure out how to put a picture up, because I see some lovely pictures here.
Okay. All right. So in the meanwhile, I just want to thank everyone for joining. And I do hope that, you all learned something that can be used in, your own day-to-day life, helping young people as you seek to, serve them, the young people at your church, young people that are in your family, and general young people that you'll meet on a daily basis. And so you can open your mics now. I want to find out from you. Did you enjoy this session? It's our first, so I want the feedback. Did you have a wonderful time listening to this presentation? And do I have your commitment that you will be here next week as well? Open your mics and let me hear what you have to say.
Definitely.
Yes,
It
it
was
was
very
a beautiful
informative.
session.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful presentation indeed.
Yes, it was.
Wonderful.
Why, thank you, ladies. I am gratified.
Yes, and persons in the chat said very informative. So Miss Platt, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to be here with us. To be honest, even though I work in social services, you have taught me so much tonight, especially about vaping and Molly. I hear young people talking about it. I know that it's something that has been plaguing our young people, especially those who are in the schools. But listening to the information today, I have been informed, and I am now at a better place where the young people that I deal with who are participating or who are taking these substances, I can be able to better help them with the knowledge I now have. So thank you very much for coming. We are very happy. You did a very wonderful job, an excellent job presenting this information to us. To be honest, I was glued listening to you, and I am really happy that I can be a part of this platform. So thank you again, Miss Platt, and we wish you all the best. as you continue to help the young people of Hanover to overcome their drug abuse. So thank you so much, and do have a great evening.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you,
The same to
everyone.
you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I will see you again next week, Thursday. And next week, we will be looking on the matter of self-esteem and everything that has to do with that aspect. So see you next week, Thursday. All the best, and have yourself a wonderful night.
Thank you. Same to you.